In the dim glow of a shattered world, where the skies of Epsilon Eridani hung heavy with the ash of forgotten battles, Eli cradled his tiny daughter against his chest. The planet, once a bustling frontier colony named Haven 9, now lay in ruins, its domed habitats cracked like eggshells under the relentless siege of interstellar wars. Eli, a retired soldier with scars etched deeper than the craters outside his makeshift shelter, had seen too much. The Galactic Federation's retreat had left him stranded here, a lone human amid the debris, with nothing but the wail of his infant girl to remind him he was still alive. Little Aria's cries pierced the silence like laser fire, her small fists flailing in hunger. Born just months ago in the chaos of evacuation, she was all he had left of his late wife, who had perished in a plasma storm during their desperate flight. Milk, real, nutrient-rich milk, was a luxury long gone. The synthesizers in his pod had failed weeks ago, their circuits fried by electromagnetic pulses from orbiting wreckage. Eli had scavenged what he could, powdered substitutes from abandoned supply drops, diluted with filtered water from the planet's toxic rains, but Aria needed more. Her skin was paling, her cries growing weaker, and every sob twisted a knife in his heart. He paced the cramped confines of his habitat, a repurposed cargo container buried under layers of regolith for protection. The air recyclers hummed faintly, filtering out the metallic tang of dust and radiation. Outside, the wind howled across the barren plains, carrying echoes of distant thunder or perhaps the rumble of alien scavengers probing the ruins. Eli's rifle lay propped against the wall, a relic from his days in the Terran Marines, but what good was a weapon against starvation? As the sun dipped below the jagged horizon, painting the sky in bruised purples and reds, a soft knock echoed through the reinforced door. Eli froze. Visitors. Here, the colony was supposed to be deserted, its survivors long evacuated or lost. He glanced at the security feed, a grainy holo screen flickering with static, and his breath caught. Standing outside was a figure unlike any he'd seen in his tours of duty, a woman, ethereal and otherworldly, with flowing white hair that shimmered like starlight, pale skin glowing faintly under the twilight, and delicate, pointed ears that twitched with an almost playful curiosity. She was clad in a form-fitting ensemble of iridescent fabric, elegant yet revealing, hugging her curvaceous form in ways that seemed designed to captivate. Fox-like, he thought instinctively, those ears, that sly grace in her posture. An alien from the Zerathian enclaves, perhaps. But what was she doing on this forsaken rock? The knock came again, insistent but gentle. Aria's cries softened for a moment, as if the sound intrigued her. Ella's hand hovered over his sidearm, instincts honed from years of combat screaming caution. But desperation won out. He needed help, any help for his child. With a deep breath, he unsealed the door, the hydraulics hissing like a wary serpent. She stepped inside with a fluid motion, her eyes a vivid emerald flecked with gold locking onto his. "Human," she said, her voice a melodic purr that sent an unexpected shiver down his spine. "I am Lyra, of the Zerathian Veil. I've watched you from afar, tending to your little one. She hungers, does she not?" Eli nodded warily, shifting Aria to his other arm. "Who are you? How did you get here?" Lyra tilted her head, her white hair cascading over one shoulder, revealing the subtle curve of her neck. "My people have hidden outposts on many worlds, even those scarred by your wars. I live next door, in a manner of speaking. Cloaked in the shadows of the ridge, and I have what you need." From beneath her cloak, she produced a small, glowing vial filled with a creamy liquid that swirled with bioluminescent specks. "Milk from the sacred blooms of Zerathia. Pure, nourishing. It will sustain your child far better than your crude machines." Isla's eyes widened. It looked too good to be true, miraculous even. But in the vastness of space, miracles often came with strings. "What's the catch?" he asked, his voice rough from disuse. A sly smile played on her lips, those fox-like ears perking up. "No catch, warrior. Merely an offer. In exchange, I ask for your aid. My kind faces threats from ancient foes, tricks and deceptions woven into the stars themselves. A human like you, with your unyielding spirit, could tip the balance. Join me, and your daughter thrives." The proposition hung in the air, charged with possibility. Eli felt a pull, not just of necessity, but something deeper, a spark in her gaze that stirred memories of connection long buried under the weight of loss. As Aria quieted in his arms, reaching tiny fingers toward the vial, he wondered if this enigmatic fox woman was his salvation, or the beginning of a far greater storm. The habitat felt smaller with her presence, the air thicker, scented with a faint, exotic musk that reminded him of blooming night flowers on distant worlds. Lyra moved closer, her movements graceful, almost hypnotic as she extended the vial. "Take it," she urged softly, "see how it calms her." Hesitantly, Eli accepted, warming the liquid in his palm, before dripping it into Aria's eager mouth. The infant suckled greedily, her cries fading into contented gurgles. Relief washed over him like a cool wave, but questions burned in his mind. Who was this Lyra, really, and what dangers lurked in her aid? As the night deepened outside, with meteor showers streaking the sky like fiery omens, Eli found himself drawn into conversation. Lyra spoke of Zerathia, a realm of shimmering veils and ancient mysteries, where her people, elegant beings with fox-like traits, evolved from symbiotic bonds with ethereal spirits, navigated the cosmos with cunning and grace. "We are not warriors like you humans," she explained, her voice weaving a tapestry of wonder. "We dance through deceptions, outwitting those who seek to ensnare us. But lately, the old weaver's ancient aliens from the void have returned, spinning webs of illusion that threaten our survival." Eli listened, his guard lowering inch by inch. Her stories painted pictures of starlit courts and perilous journeys, where alliances were forged in the heat of unexpected passions. He shared fragments of his own past, the brutal campaigns against the hive swarms, the loss of comrades, the quiet vow to protect Aria at all costs. There was a vulnerability in her eyes when he spoke of his wife, a shared understanding of loss that bridged the gulf between species. Hours slipped by, the vial's glow casting soft shadows on her pale skin, highlighting the elegant lines of her attire fabric that seemed to shift with her breaths, teasing glimpses of her alluring form. Eli felt an unfamiliar warmth stir within him, a mix of gratitude and intrigue. Lyra's offer wasn't just about milk, it was an invitation to something more profound, a chance to reclaim purpose in a universe that had stripped him bare. By dawn's first light filtering through the habitat's portholes, Aria slept peacefully, her cheeks flushed with health. Lyra rose to leave, but paused at the door, turning with an enigmatic smile. "Think on my words, Eli. The stars await our alliance, and perhaps more." As the door sealed behind her, Eli stared at the empty space she left, his heart pounding with a rhythm he hadn't felt in years. The war-torn planet suddenly felt less desolate, pregnant with possibilities. But deep down, he knew accepting her offer would thrust him into a web of interstellar intrigue, where human grit might just outsmart the cosmos itself. Yet, as he watched Aria's steady breathing, he realized he had little choice. The fox woman next door had knocked not just on his door, but on the door of his soul. The days that followed blurred into a tense rhythm. Eli fortified his habitat, repairing the synthesizers with scavenged parts, but Lyra's milk proved irreplaceable. Aria thrived on it, growing stronger with each feeding. Lyra returned nightly, slipping through the shadows like a ghost, each visit deepening their connection. She brought not just sustenance, but stories that ignited his imagination, tales of Zerathian festivals under triple moons, where dances led to forbidden unions between species. One evening, as thunder rolled across the plains, Lyra arrived with a larger supply, her white hair damp from the acid rain. "The weavers draw closer," she whispered, her emerald eyes shadowed with worry. "Their illusions cloak entire fleets. I need your human perspective, your straightforward might to pierce their veils." Eli hesitated, but the pull was undeniable. Her presence awakened desires long dormant, her touch accidental brushes of fingers sending electric sparks through him. "What exactly do you propose?" he asked, his voice low. She leaned in, her breath warm against his ear. "Come with me to my outpost. See the truth. In return, Aria will never hunger again." The decision crystallized in that moment. Gathering his gear, Eli followed her into the night, Aria bundled securely in a carrier against his chest. The journey across the ridge was perilous, dodging automated drones left from the wars, navigating crevices that glowed with residual energy. Lyra moved with supernatural agility, her fox ears twitching at every sound, guiding him through hidden paths. They arrived at her dwelling, a cloaked dome blending seamlessly with the rock, its interior a wonder of bioluminescent vines and holographic displays. "Welcome to my sanctuary," Lyra said, her voice laced with pride. Inside, the air was perfumed with exotic scents, and soft lights illuminated artifacts from distant worlds. As they settled, Lyra prepared a meal Zerathian delicacies that melted on the tongue. Conversation flowed like wine, touching on dreams and fears. Eli found himself opening up, sharing the weight of his veteran's burdens, while Lyra confessed the loneliness of her exile, sent to observe human colonies but forbidden from interfering until now. The night deepened, and with Arya asleep in a cradled nook, tension built between them. Lyra's gaze lingered on him, her form silhouetted against the glow. "Humans are fascinating," she murmured. "So resilient, so passionate." Eli felt the air charge, a magnetic draw pulling him closer. Their hands met, fingers intertwining, and in that touch, worlds collided. But as lips brushed in a tentative kiss, a distant alarm blared. Weaver scouts approaching. The alliance was about to be tested, sooner than expected. Eli grabbed his rifle, heart racing not just from danger, but from the promise of what lay ahead. Lyra's offer had evolved into something profound, a bond forged in desperation and desire, ready to challenge the stars. Eli's fingers tightened around the grip of his rifle, the cool metal grounding him as the alarm's wail cut through the intimate haze that had enveloped them moments before. Lyra's lips still lingered in his memory, soft and yielding, tasting faintly of wild berries from some uncharted nebula. But the kiss had barely begun, a spark in the darkness, when the sanctuary's defenses screamed to life. Red lights pulsed across the holographic displays, casting her pale skin in a crimson glow that accentuated the curves of her form, her iridescent attire clinging like a second skin, leaving little to the imagination. "They're here," Lyra breathed, her emerald eyes narrowing as she pulled away, though her hand lingered on his arm, a touch that sent warmth racing through his veins. "Weaver scouts faster than I anticipated." Their illusions must have masked their approach. Eli's military instincts kicked in, shoving aside the budding desire that had stirred within him. He scanned the room, noting the layout vine-covered walls that hummed with energy, a central console flickering with star maps, and hidden compartments that likely concealed weapons. Arya stirred in her cradle, but miraculously stayed asleep, perhaps soothed by the sanctuary's ambient hum. "How many?" he asked, his voice steady despite the adrenaline surging through him. Lyra tapped a sequence on the console, bringing up a spectral image of the ridge outside. Ghostly shapes flickered in and out of view, elongated figures, with tendrils that writhed like living shadows, their forms shifting to blend with the rocky terrain. "3, maybe 4, they're probing, testing our veil. If they breach, they'll unravel everything." He nodded, slinging the rifle over his shoulder and grabbing a spare energy clip from his pack. "Then we don't let them. Show me your defenses." She led him to a side panel, her movements fluid and enticing even in the urgency, her white hair swaying like a banner in the recycled air. As she opened a cache of Zerathian tech sleek devices that pulsed with inner light, Eli couldn't help but steal glances at her. The way her pointed ears flicked with concentration, the subtle sway of her hips as she bent to retrieve a disruptor wand, it was distracting, intoxicating. In the midst of this forsaken planet, she was a vision of allure from another world, and the danger only heightened the electric tension between them. "Here," she said, pressing the wand into his hand. It was lightweight, almost alive, vibrating faintly against his palm. "It disrupts their illusions. Aim for the core, the glowing nexus in their chests." Their fingers brushed again, longer this time, and Eli felt a jolt that had nothing to do with the weapon. Her gaze met his, holding a promise unspoken, a heat that mirrored the fire building in his chest. But the alarm escalated, a shrill crescendo that demanded action. Lyra sealed Arya's cradle with a protective field, a shimmering bubble that would shield the infant from harm, then motioned for him to follow her to the exit. They slipped out into the night, the acid rain pattering against their cloaks, hers a flowing garment that somehow repelled the drops, his a ragged military issue that did little more than soak through. The ridge loomed ahead, jagged and unforgiving, lit sporadically by flashes of distant lightning. Eli's boots crunched on the regolith, his senses heightened, the metallic scent of ozone, the distant rumble of thunder masking potential footsteps. Lyra moved ahead, her form a shadow among shadows, guiding him with subtle gestures. "Stay close," she whispered, her voice a silken thread in the storm. "They thrive on deception, make you see what isn't there." As if on cue, the first illusion struck. The ground before them rippled, transforming into a chasm of endless void, stars swirling in its depths. Eli halted, heart pounding, but Lyra's hand on his wrist pulled him forward. "It's not real, trust me." He stepped through, the illusion shattering like glass, revealing solid rock. The contact of her skin on his was electric, a reminder of the kiss interrupted, fueling a resolve that went beyond survival. They crested a boulder, and there it was, a weaver scout, its tendrils probing the air, body a miasma of shifting colors designed to confuse. Eli raised the disruptor, but Lyra stayed his hand. "Wait, let me draw it out." She stepped into view, her posture shifting to one of vulnerable allure, ears drooping slightly as if in submission. The scout turned, its nexus pulsing brighter, drawn to her like a moth to flame. In that moment, Eli saw her cunning, the fox in her heritage shining through. She was bait, elegant and irresistible, her attire catching the faint starlight in ways that highlighted her graceful curves. The scout advanced, tendrils extending, and Eli felt a surge of protectiveness mingled with something primal. "Now," she hissed. He fired. The disruptor beam lanced out, a violet streak that pierced the illusion, striking the nexus dead center. The scout convulsed, its form solidifying into a grotesque, insectoid horror before dissolving into wisps of energy. The air cleared, but echoes of its deception lingered, phantom whispers in the wind. Lyra turned to him, breathing heavily, her chest rising and falling in a rhythm that drew his eyes despite the peril. "One down," she said, a triumphant smile curving her lips. "Your aim is true, human." Before he could respond, another scout materialized from the shadows, this one larger, its tendrils whipping like lashes. It lunged at Lyra, forcing her to dodge with acrobatic grace, her body twisting in mid-air, the fabric of her outfit straining against her form. Eli charged forward, rifle barking plasma rounds that glanced off its shifting hide. "Use the wand," she called, rolling to her feet beside him. He switched weapons, but the scout was upon them, tendrils ensnaring Lyra's ankle, yanking her off balance. She cried out, a sound that twisted Ila's gut. He dove, grabbing her waist to pull her free, their bodies pressing together in the struggle. Her warmth seeped through the thin material, her scent enveloping him, musk and stardust igniting a fire that battled the cold fear. Together, they wrestled the tendril, Eli blasting it point blank with the disruptor. The scout recoiled, nexus exposed, and Lyra finished it with a precise shot from her own device. As it dissipated, they collapsed against each other, panting, her head resting on his shoulder for a fleeting second. "Are you all right?" he asked, his hand lingering on her back, feeling the rapid beat of her heart. She looked up, eyes gleaming with a mix of adrenaline and something deeper. "Better now. Your strength, it's intoxicating." The words hung between them, charged with unspoken desire. But the night wasn't over. 2 more scouts circled, their illusions weaving a labyrinth of false paths and phantom threats. Eli and Lyra moved as one, back to back, her agility complementing his brute force. She darted low, disrupting one with a sweeping kick that revealed its core, while he provided covering fire, his shots precise and unrelenting. In the midst of the fray, moments of intimacy pierced the chaos, a brush of her tail like appendage against his leg weight. Did she have a tail? No, it was an illusion, or perhaps part of her attire fluttering, but it sent shivers up his spine. Her laughter, light and teasing, as they evaded a collapsing mirage of rock. "Humans fight with such passion," she murmured during a brief lull, her body close enough that he could feel the heat radiating from her. The third scout fell to a combined assault, Eli pinning it with suppressive fire while Lyra circled, her movements a dance of seduction and lethality, drawing its attention before striking. The final one proved trickier, enveloping them in a dome of illusionary darkness, where whispers of doubt assailed their minds, visions of Arya crying alone, of lost loves, of failures in battle. Eli shook them off, grounding himself in Lyra's presence. "It's not real," he echoed her earlier words, reaching for her hand in the void. Their fingers intertwined, a anchor in the storm, and together they blasted through, the disruptor beams converging on the nexus like converging destinies. As the last scout vanished, silence descended, broken only by the patter of rain. They stood amid the ridge, victorious, bodies aching but alive. Lyra turned to him, rain slicking her white hair to her skin, making her attire translucent in places, revealing the elegant lines of her figure. "You were magnificent," she said, stepping closer, her voice husky with exhaustion and exhilaration. Ellie's breath caught as she pressed against him, the barrier of danger shattered, leaving only the pull between them. His hands found her waist, drawing her in, and this time, the kiss was unbroken, deep, exploring, a fusion of human fire and alien mystery. Her lips parted, inviting, her tongue darting with a playful curiosity that made his pulse race. She tasted of adventure, of forbidden stars, her body molding to his with a softness that belied her strength. They stumbled back toward the sanctuary, the kiss breaking only for gasps of air, her fingers tracing the scars on his chest through his torn shirt. "I've watched you for so long," she confessed between kisses, her pointed ears brushing his cheek. "Your resilience, your heart, it calls to me." Inside, with Arya still safely asleep, they shed their wet clothes by the console's glow. Lyra's attire peeled away like petals, revealing pale skin that shimmered faintly, as if dusted with stardust. Ulla's gaze roamed, appreciative, aroused by her otherworldly beauty, the subtle points of her ears, the graceful arch of her back, the inviting swell of her breasts. She was a masterpiece of evolution, designed for allure in ways human women could only dream. He pulled her to him, their bodies entwining on a bed of soft vines that cushioned them like a lover's embrace. Her touch was exploratory, fingers mapping his muscles with wonder, eliciting groans from deep within him. "Show me," she whispered, her voice a sultry invitation, "what it means to be human in passion." Eli obliged, his hands caressing her curves, discovering sensitive spots that made her gasp, the base of her ears, the small of her back where a faint tail-like ridge hinted at her fox heritage. Their movements built slowly, suspenseful in their exploration, each touch heightening the anticipation. She arched under him, her legs wrapping around his waist, pulling him closer, her emerald eyes locking onto his with an intensity that promised ecstasy. As they united, the world outside faded, the war-torn planet, the lurking threats replaced by a rhythm of shared breaths and moans. Lyra's cries were melodic, echoing through the sanctuary, her body responding with a fervor that matched his own. It was erotic, raw, a blending of species that defied the cosmos divisions, where human ingenuity met alien grace in the most intimate dance. But even in the throes, suspense lingered, a faint beep from the console, a reminder that the Weaver's true assault might yet come. Yet for now, in this stolen moment, they were lost in each other, forging a bond that could outsmart any ancient trick. The night wore on, their passion ebbing into tender caresses, whispers of futures intertwined. Lyra nestled against him, her white hair fanned across his chest, her hand resting protectively over where Arya slept. "This is just the beginning," she murmured, her voice laced with promise and peril. Eli held her close, his mind racing with the implications, the dangers ahead. But with her in his arms, he felt unbreakable, a lone veteran no longer alone, ready to face whatever illusions the stars threw their way. As the first hints of dawn filtered through the sanctuary's veiled ports, casting a soft, ethereal light over their entwined forms, Eli traced lazy patterns along Lyra's bare shoulder, her skin cool and smooth like polished marble under his fingertips. The remnants of their passion lingered in the air, a heady mix of sweat and that exotic musk unique to her, and for a fleeting moment, the universe felt conquerable, the threats of the Weaver's distant echoes rather than impending doom. Arya's soft breaths from her protected cradle added a gentle underscore to the quiet, a reminder that this fragile piece was built on the edge of a blade. Lyra shifted against him, her emerald eyes fluttering open, reflecting the growing light with a depth that pulled him in like a gravitational well. "The Weavers won't stop with scouts," she murmured, her voice a low vibration against his chest. "Their true assault comes with the rising sun. Ancient tricks, illusions that bend reality itself. But with you we might unravel them." Eli propped himself on an elbow, his gaze sweeping over her, the cascade of white hair spilling like a waterfall, the subtle twitch of her pointed ears as if attuned to unseen frequencies, the way her luxurious attire lay discarded nearby, its iridescent folds catching the dawn in prismatic whispers. A surge of protectiveness washed over him, mingled with the thrill of the unknown. "Tell me everything," he said, his tone firm yet laced with the intimacy they'd just shared. "No more half-truths. If we're allies in every sense, I need to know what we're facing." She sat up slowly, the vines beneath them rustling like conspiratorial leaves, and wrapped a sheer shawl around her shoulders, though it did little to conceal the alluring contours of her body. Her expression turned grave, eyes distant as if peering into the void. "The old Weavers are relics from the galaxy's dawn, beings of pure psyche who weave deceptions into the fabric of space-time. They ensnared Zerathia centuries ago, forcing my people into hiding. I was sent here, to this forsaken world, not just to observe humans, but to find a catalyst. Your kind's unyielding will that fuck yeah spirit, as you call it, disrupts their patterns. It's why I offered the milk, why I drew you in. A chill crept up Eli's spine, not from fear, but from the dawning realization of how deeply their fates were intertwined. He dressed quickly, pulling on his fatigues, the familiar weight of his gear grounding him amid the revelations. And Aria? Is she part of this? Lyra's smile was bittersweet, her fingers brushing his cheek. She's the innocent spark. The weavers feed on despair. A child's purity weakens their hold. But come, we must prepare. They moved to the central console, where holographic projections sprang to life at her touch, mapping the ridge and beyond in swirling blues and golds. The display showed anomalies, ripples in the atmosphere, like heat haze over desert sands, converging on their position. Ila's heart quickened. This was no mere skirmish. As Lyra calibrated defenses, a low hum built in the air, vibrating through the sanctuary's walls. Suddenly, the projections flickered, distorted by an external force. "They're here," she whispered, her voice taut with urgency. The first wave hit like a psychic storm. Illusions flooded the sanctuary, walls melting into voids, floors buckling into abyssal drops. Eli grabbed Lyra's hand, steadying her as the room spun. Aria's cradle rocked, but the protective field held, her tiny form oblivious to the chaos. Outside, through the ports, the landscape transformed, the barren plains erupting into nightmarish visions of writhing tentacles and collapsing stars. But Ailey's trained mind pierced the veil. He saw the truth beneath, the weaver's true forms, colossal, amorphous entities drifting like storm clouds, their tendrils lashing at the cloaked dome. "We fight back," Ali growled, activating the disruptor array Lyra had shown him. Beams lanced out, slicing through the illusions, but the weavers adapted, their deceptions evolving. One entity coalesced into a mimic of Ali's late wife, her face twisted in accusation. "You left me to die." The vision lunged, tendrils disguised as arms reaching for Aria's cradle. "No!" Ellie roared, firing wildly, the disruptor humming in his grip. The mimic shattered, but the emotional blow landed, stirring doubts he'd buried deep. Lyra countered with her own tech, a veil emitter that projected counter-illusions, turning the weaver's tricks against them. "Focus on me," she urged, her voice cutting through the din like a lifeline. "Our bond is real, use it." Thrilling energy coursed through him as they synchronized, Ellie's human precision complementing Lyra's cunning. He dashed to a manual turret, overriding the console to unleash a barrage of plasma. The air crackled with discharges, the sanctuary shaking under the assault. A weaver breached the outer veil, its nexus pulsing like a malevolent heart, flooding the interior with hallucinations, swarms of insectoid horrors crawling over their skin, whispers of failure echoing in their ears. Lyra cried out as one illusion gripped her, a vision of her exiled kin, condemning her for consorting with a human. She faltered, ears flattening against her head, but Eli was there, pulling her close, his embrace shattering the deceit. "It's not them," he said fiercely, his lips brushing her temple. "It's us against the stars." Emboldened, she channeled her essence into the emitter, her body glowing faintly as if drawing power from within. The counterwave surged, revealing the weaver's vulnerabilities, cracks in their psychic armor where human logic could strike. Eli targeted them relentlessly, his shots guided by instinct honed in countless battles. One weaver imploded in a cascade of ethereal shards, its demise sending shockwaves that toppled nearby ruins, but the climax built relentlessly. The lead weaver, larger than the others, descended like a living nebula, enveloping the sanctuary in total darkness. Sound warped, time stretched, curious sensations assaulted them, memories not their own flashing by, ancient Zerathian wars, human colonies burning. Thrilling and terrifying, the entity probed their minds, seeking weaknesses in their alliance. Surprise struck when Lyra revealed a hidden truth. "Ellie," she gasped, her hand on his chest, "the milk, it's not just nourishment. It's infused with Zerathian essence. Aria carries a piece of my world, now a bridge between us." The revelation hit like a plasma bolt. Aria wasn't just his daughter, she was a hybrid hope, her cries now resonating with a subtle hum that disrupted the weaver's hold. Eli's mind raced, curious implications unfolding. Was this why Lyra had chosen him? Had their passion been part of a greater plan? No time for doubt. The weaver pressed in, its nexus exposed in a desperate bid to crush them. Eli and Lyra moved as one, her guiding his aim through the darkness, their touches electric with shared resolve. He fired the final shot, a concentrated beam amplified by her veil, piercing the core. The entity screamed a psychic wail that echoed across the planet before exploding in a brilliant supernova of light. The illusions shattered, dawn breaking fully as debris rained down. The remaining weavers fled, their ancient tricks unraveled by the unlikeliest of unions. Eli collapsed against the console, breathing ragged, Lyra in his arms, her white hair disheveled but her eyes alight with victory. Yet, in the thrilling aftermath, a surprising shadow loomed. As the hologram stabilized, a new signal blinked, a transmission from Zerathia, urgent and coded. "They know," Lyra whispered, her voice laced with drama. "My people, they've detected the bond." And the Weaver's masters stir. Eli pulled her closer, heart pounding with curiosity about what lay ahead. The climax had passed, but the storm was far from over. Surprises waiting in the stars, where human ingenuity and alien grace might yet forge an empire-shaking alliance. The sanctuary hummed back to life, Aria's coos joining the symphony, a tiny beacon in the vast unknown. Eli kissed Lyra deeply, tasting the thrill of survival, the drama of destinies entwined. Whatever came next, they would face it together, warriors, lovers, saviors in a galaxy ripe for revolution. But as they watched the horizon, a faint ripple lingered in the sky, a curious harbinger of greater threats. The weavers were but pawns, the true game was just beginning, surprising twists unfolding like constellations in the night. Ili's resolve hardened, his hand finding hers. "Let's end this," he said, voice dramatic with determination. The climax had forged them anew, thrilling prospects ahead in the interstellar dance of fate. Lyra's fingers laced tighter with his, her touch a blend of silk and steel, as if anchoring him against the swirling uncertainties that the transmission's glow cast across the sanctuary's console. "Ending it won't be simple," she replied, her voice a dramatic undertone laced with the weight of cosmic secrets, her emerald eyes flickering with the reflected data streams. The signal from Zerathia pulsed insistently, a cascade of symbols that danced like fireflies in a storm, ancient codes demanding acknowledgement, pulling them from the euphoric high of victory into the murky depths of interstellar politics. Eli squeezed her hand, feeling the subtle warmth of her palm, a reminder of the passion that had bound them just hours before. "Then we face it head on. Your people, my grit, we've already cracked the weavers. What's a little family reunion compared to that?" She let out a soft laugh, melodic yet edged with tension, her pointed ears twitching in that endearing way that always caught him off guard. "Family? Oh, Eli, you have no idea. The Council of Veils isn't exactly the welcoming type. They're traditional. And a human bond like ours? It might ruffle more than a few tales." The humor in her words lightened the moment briefly, but the drama escalated as the transmission resolved into a holographic figure, a regal Zerathian elder, her white hair braided with glowing threads, fox-like features stern and unyielding. The projection shimmered to life, filling the room with an authoritative presence that made the air feel heavier. "Lyra of the Veil," the elder intoned, her voice echoing like thunder rolling through a canyon. "Your actions have rippled across the stars. The Weaver's defeat is noted, but at what cost? You bring a human into our sacred folds, and with a child infused. Report immediately. A vessel approaches." The hologram faded, leaving a charged silence. Eli blinked, processing the implications. Infused. The revelation about Aria still buzzed in his mind like an unresolved chord, heightening the drama of their situation. He glanced at his daughter, still cooing softly in her cradle, oblivious to how she had become a pivotal piece in this galactic puzzle. Lyra's face paled slightly, her dauntless composure cracking just enough to reveal vulnerability. "They're coming here? Now? I thought we'd have time to prepare." Before Eli could respond, the sanctuary's sensors blared a new alert, this one from orbital scanners. A sleek Zerathian shuttle pierced the planet's atmosphere, its hull gleaming like polished obsidian, descending with the grace of a predator bird. Drama thickened the air. This wasn't just a pickup, it felt like Judgment Day. Ili's heart raced, a mix of excitement and unease churning in his gut. "Guess preparation time's over. What's the protocol? Do I bow, salute, or just stand there looking rugged?" Lyra shot him a wry smile, attempting to diffuse the tension with a touch of humor. Rugged might work, humans have that charm. But avoid staring at their ears, it's considered intimate. She hurried to redress, slipping into her iridescent attire that hugged her curves with elegant precision, the fabric shifting colors under the lights as if alive. Ali followed suit, strapping on his gear, but not before stealing a glance at her, the memory of her body against his adding an undercurrent of desire to the mounting pressure. As the shuttle landed with a soft thud outside, kicking up regolith in swirling clouds, they stepped out together, Arya bundled in Eli's arms. The ramp lowered with a hydraulic sigh, revealing 3 Zerathians the Elder from the hologram, flanked by 2 guards whose fox-like ears stood alert, their forms clad in flowing robes that whispered secrets with every movement. The Elder's gaze swept over them, lingering on Eli with a mix of curiosity and disdain, her pale skin glowing faintly in the dawnlight. "Lyra," the Elder said, her tone dramatic and laced with accusation, "you've woven a tangled veil indeed. This human ally, is it? And the infant? Explain yourself before the council demands it." Lyra straightened, her hand brushing Isla's arm for support, but the gesture didn't go unnoticed. One guard's ears perked up, and he let out a low, involuntary chuff, a sound Eli later learned was the Zerathian equivalent of a scandalized gasp. "Mother Eli and Lyra," began, her voice steady but infused with drama. "The Weavers threatened everything. Ella's human resolve shattered their illusions. And the bond, it was necessary. Vital, even." Eloan's eyes narrowed, the air crackling with unspoken judgments. "Necessary? You've infused a human child with our essence, milk from the sacred blooms, no less. And this alliance," she gestured between them, her gaze dropping to where their hands nearly touched again. The awkwardness hit like a rogue asteroid. Eli felt heat creep up his neck, suddenly hyper-aware of how disheveled they must look after the night's battles and intimacies. Arya chose that moment to gurgle happily, reaching a tiny hand toward Eloan's braided hair, which sparkled like captured starlight. The Elder's stern facade cracked slightly, a flicker of amusement crossing her features. The child senses the link. Intriguing, but then her attention snapped back to Eli. "Humans speak. Why entangle yourself in Zerathian affairs? Is it glory, power, or something more carnal?" Eli choked on his response, the directness catching him off guard. "Carnal?" In front of what amounted to Lyra's space mom, he cleared his throat, injecting a bit of humor to ease the tension. "Well, Mammer, Mother Eloan, it started with milk for my daughter. Didn't expect it to lead to saving the galaxy and, falling for your exile here. But hey, in my line of work, you roll with the plasma blasts." The guards exchanged glances, one suppressing a smirk apparently, human sarcasm translated awkwardly across species. Lyra elbowed him subtly, her cheeks flushing a delicate pink, heightening the awkward intimacy of the moment. "He's jesting, Mother. But his spirit is true. Without him, the Weavers would have claimed this world and more." Drama escalated as Eloan stepped closer, her presence commanding, the wind whipping her robes dramatically against the barren landscape. "Jest or not, the council will decide. Board the shuttle. Zerathia awaits, where truths are unveiled and bonds tested." She turned, but not before casting a pointed look at Arya. The infused one, she may be key to unraveling greater threats. The Weavers, masters, the Void architects stir in the shadows. Your alliance has poked a hornet's nest larger than you imagine. Eli's mind whirled with the Revelation Weavers as mere pawns. The drama deepened, a thrilling undercurrent of larger conspiracies pulling at him like tidal forces. As they boarded, the shuttle's interior enveloped them in luxury, plush seats woven from bioluminescent fibers, holographic displays swirling with star charts, and a faint, soothing hum that made Arya coo in delight. But awkwardness lingered. The guards positioned themselves strategically, one accidentally brushing Eli's rifle, prompting a tense standoff. "Easy there, fox friend," Eli quipped, trying to lighten the mood with humor. "I'm not here to conquer, just to keep my girls safe." The guard tilted his head, ears flicking in confusion. "Fox friend. Is this a human endearment or insult?" Lyra stifled a laugh, her hand covering her mouth, the sound bubbling out despite the drama. "It's affectionate, sort of." The exchange broke some ice, but Eloan remained stoic, directing the pilot to lift off. As the planet receded below, a dramatic vista of craters and storms unfolding, Eli felt the weight of eyes on him, curious, judgmental, perhaps even envious. Seated beside Lyra, their thighs brushing in the confined space, he whispered, "This is awkward. Feels like meeting the in-laws after eloping in space." She leaned in, her breath warm against his ear, adding a spark of intimacy to the tension. "Worse. Zerathians bond through rituals. Ours was improvised." Her fingers traced his knee under the console, a secretive touch that heightened the drama, making his pulse quicken. But just then, Arya let out a wail, hungry again, and Eli fumbled for the remaining vial of milk, spilling a drop on his boot in his haste. The guards stared. Iloan arched an eyebrow. Human clumsiness, she muttered, but with a hint of humor in her tone. Perhaps it endears you to her. Eli chuckled, wiping it up, the moment diffusing some awkwardness into shared levity. Hey, if spilling sacred milk wins points, I'll take it. Lyra's eyes sparkled with affection, her body shifting closer, the subtle curve of her form pressing against him in a way that stirred memories of their night together. As the shuttle accelerated toward the jump point, drama built with each passing star. Eloan revealed more: the void architects, ancient entities beyond the weavers, manipulating galaxies from hidden realms. Your bond may be the weapon we need or the spark that ignites war. Her words hung heavy, heightening the stakes, but Ela's human optimism shone through. We'll handle it, he said, wrapping an arm around Lyra, ignoring the guards' awkward glances. Arya quieted with the milk, her tiny hand grasping Lyra's finger, a poignant symbol of their unconventional family. Humor peeked through when one guard, trying to break the silence, asked Eli about human customs. Do all your kind mate so impulsively? Eli grinned, playing along. Only the lucky ones. Lyra blushed, elbowing him again, the laughter rippling through the cabin like a bomb against the encroaching storm. Yet, as they entered hyperspace, a dramatic anomaly flickered on the scanners, a shadow tailing them, perhaps a weaver remnant or something worse. Eloan's face hardened. They're following. Prepare for evasion. Ila's rifle was in hand in seconds, the awkward family dynamic shifting to battle readiness. The shuttle banked sharply, engines roaring, as pursuers emerged, sleek drones, illusions cloaking their numbers. Drama peaked in the chase, lasers grazing the hull, Eli manning a turret with Lyra at the controls beside him. Left flank, he shouted, firing bursts that shattered deceptions, revealing the drone's cores. Lyra dodged with acrobatic precision, her laughter mixing with adrenaline-fueled whoops. You fly like you dance, he teased, adding humor amid the chaos. One drone clipped the wing, sending sparks flying, an awkward jolt that threw Ellie into Lyra's lap momentarily. Not the time for romance. Eloan barked, but even she cracked a smile. They outmaneuvered the pursuers, jumping to safety, but the drama left them breathless. Zerathia loomed ahead, a shimmering world of veils and mysteries, where greater awkwardnesses and revelations awaited. Eli held Lyra close, Arya between them, ready for whatever humorous twists fate threw next in this interstellar saga of love and legend. As the shuttle stabilized in the safety of hyperspace, the stars stretching into luminous streaks beyond the viewports, Eli exhaled a long breath, the adrenaline from the chase still thrumming through his veins like an electric current. Lyra's hands lingered on the controls, her fingers trembling slightly from the exertion, but her emerald eyes sparkled with the exhilaration of their narrow escape. Eloan and the guards busied themselves at the forward console, murmuring in hushed Zerathian tones about reinforced veils and potential reinforcements, giving Eli and Lyra a semblance of privacy in the aft compartment where Arya dozed peacefully in her secured cradle. You were incredible out there, Eli whispered, his voice low and rough, as he reached over to brush a stray lock of her white hair behind one pointed ear. The touch was innocent at first, but it ignited a familiar spark, reminding him of the intimacy they'd shared back on the planet, the way her body had moved with his in perfect harmony amid the chaos. Lyra turned to him, her pale skin flushed from the battle, the iridescent fabric of her attire clinging to her curves in a way that accentuated every graceful line. And you, my warrior, she replied softly, her melodic voice carrying a husky undertone that sent warmth pooling in his core. Your strength, it calls to me, even now. Her hand found his thigh under the console, a subtle caress that spoke volumes, heightening the tension that had been building since their interrupted moment in the sanctuary. The shuttle's hum provided a soothing backdrop, but the air between them grew charged, thick with unspoken desires. Eli glanced toward the forward section, ensuring Eloan was occupied, before leaning in closer. We've got a moment, he murmured, his breath grazing her neck, eliciting a soft shiver from her. Arya's gentle breathing assured him she was safe, allowing him to focus on the woman who had upended his world. Lyra's lips curved into a sly smile, her fox-like ears perking up with playful intent. She shifted in her seat, her body pressing against his side, the contact deliberate and inviting. Then let's make the most of it, she whispered, her fingers tracing slow circles on his leg, moving higher with each pass. The gesture was tender yet insistent, awakening sensations that made his pulse quicken. In the confined space, their proximity felt intimate, a stolen reprieve amid the stars. Eli captured her hand, guiding it to his chest where his heart beat strongly, then pulled her into a deep kiss. Their lips met with a gentle urgency, exploring the familiar territory they'd claimed before, but this time laced with the thrill of survival. Her mouth was soft and yielding, tasting of the exotic sweetness that was uniquely hers, and he savored it, his free hand cupping her face to draw her nearer. Lyra responded eagerly, her tongue dancing with his in a rhythm that mirrored the shuttle's subtle vibrations, building a slow-burning fire between them. As the kiss deepened, her hands roamed, slipping under his shirt to trace the hard planes of his muscles, scarred from battles but warm under her touch. Eli groaned softly against her lips, the sound muffled as he reciprocated, his fingers gliding along the elegant arch of her back, feeling the subtle ridge that hinted at her alien heritage. The fabric of her outfit was thin, almost ethereal, allowing him to sense the heat radiating from her skin, and he marveled at how perfectly she fit against him, curves molding to his form in a way that felt destined. They broke for air, foreheads resting together, breaths mingling in the dim light. "I need you," Lyra confessed, her voice a breathy plea, her emerald eyes dark with longing. She glanced toward Arya's cradle, ensuring the protective field muted any sounds, then guided his hand to her waist, encouraging him to explore further. Eli obliged, his touch reverent as he caressed the swell of her hip, the smoothness of her thigh, each movement eliciting a quiet gasp from her that fueled his own desire. In the seclusion of their corner, they shed barriers carefully, mindful of their surroundings yet lost in the moment. Lyra's attire parted with a whisper of fabric, revealing more of her luminous skin, and Eli's hands worshipped her, tracing paths that made her arch into him. She was exquisite soft where he was firm, graceful in her responses, her body responding to his every caress with a fluidity that spoke of deep connection. He kissed along her neck, down to the hollow of her throat, feeling her pulse flutter under his lips, while her fingers worked to free him from his constraints, their touches growing more intimate, more insistent. The act unfolded with a tender intensity, their bodies joining in a slow, rhythmic union that celebrated their bond. Eli moved with care, attuned to her cues, each thrust a promise of protection and passion, drawing soft moans from her that she buried against his shoulder. Lyra's legs wrapped around him, pulling him deeper, her nails grazing his back in gentle encouragement, the sensation heightening the pleasure that built between them like a gathering storm. Their movements were synchronized, a dance of give and take, where human resilience met alien elegance in perfect harmony. Waves of sensation washed over them, building to a crescendo that left them breathless, clinging to each other as release came in shared ecstasy. Lyra's cries were muffled, melodic whispers of fulfillment, her body trembling in his arms as he held her close, their hearts pounding in unison. In that peak, the universe narrowed to just them, no weavers, no councils, only the profound intimacy that had forged their alliance stronger than any veil. As they descended from the heights, Eli kissed her forehead, his arms enveloping her in a protective embrace. Lyra nestled against him, her white hair fanned across his chest, a contented sigh escaping her lips. It's what will see us through," she murmured, her fingers interlacing with his. The shuttle continued its journey, hyperspace folding around them, but in that afterglow, Eli felt invincible. Yet, as serenity settled, a faint alert chimed from the console, a subtle reminder that Zerathia approached, with its trials and truths. Iloan's voice crackled over the intercom, calling them forward, oblivious to the private world they'd just shared. Eli helped Lyra adjust her attire, stealing one last kiss before they rose. "Ready for the next act?" he asked, his tone light but laced with resolve. She nodded, her eyes gleaming with affection. "With you, always." Together they moved to rejoin the others, the intimacy lingering like a secret strength, fortifying them against the mysteries awaiting on Zerathia. The planet's shimmering outline emerged as they exited hyperspace, a world of cascading veils and hidden depths, where their bond would be tested in ways neither could fully anticipate. But for now, in the quiet hum of the shuttle, Eli held on to the warmth of their connection, a beacon in the vast cosmos. The landing on Zerathia was a spectacle of ethereal beauty, the shuttle descending through layers of atmospheric veils that shimmered like auroras, parting to reveal spires of crystalline architecture intertwined with living vines. Aloan led them out, her robes flowing dramatically in the gentle breeze scented with blooming flora. The air was alive with subtle energies, making Ila's skin tingle, while Lyra walked beside him, her hand brushing his discreetly. The council awaited in a grand chamber, a domed hall where holographic stars wheeled overhead, and elders with fox-like features observed from elevated thrones. Drama hung thick as Eloan presented them. Behold, the human who unraveled the weavers, and the exile who dared infuse essence beyond our bounds. Whispers rippled through the assembly, eyes fixing on Arya, who babbled innocently in Ela's arms. One elder, a stern figure named Thaler, leaned forward. This union, human and Zerathian, challenges our traditions. Prove its worth. Lyra stepped up, her voice resonant. It already has. Our bond shattered illusions that plagued us for eons. Eli added his voice, holding Arya high. And this child bridges worlds. She's proof that together, we're stronger. Debate ensued, voices rising in dramatic cadence, but Lyra's defense, bolstered by Ayla's steadfast presence, swayed opinions. As concessions were made, a tentative alliance formed. Zerathia would aid human colonies against the Void Architects, with Eli and Lyra as emissaries. In the ensuing celebration, amid feasts of glowing fruits and melodic songs, Eli and Lyra found moments alone in secluded gardens. Their touches lingered, promises of future intimacies whispered under starlit canopies. Yet, as peace settled, a shadowy figure approached, an informant revealing that the architects had infiltrated Zerathian ranks. Drama reignited, betrayal loomed. Eli gripped his rifle, Lyra at his side. "We'll face it," he said. Their journey continued, bonds deepening through trials, their passion a constant flame in the cold void. As the informant's shadowy figure melted back into the garden's bioluminescent foliage, leaving behind only the faint echo of his warning like a lingering fog, Ila's grip on his rifle tightened, the cool metal a reassuring constant amid the swirling uncertainties of Zerathia. Lyra stood beside him, her emerald eyes scanning the twinkling lights of the spires that rose like sentient guardians around them, her pointed ears attuned to every rustle in the perfumed breeze. "Infiltration," she echoed softly, her voice a blend of resolve and quiet dread, the word hanging between them like an unspoken accusation. The celebration's melodies still drifted from the grand hall, songs of unity and tentative peace, but here in the secluded alcove, the air felt heavier, charged with the promise of unraveling threads. "We'll root them out," Eli said, his tone steady, drawing on the well of determination that had carried him through countless battlefields. He shifted Arya in his other arm, her tiny weight a grounding force, her soft breath as a reminder of why he fought, not just for survival, but for a future where she could thrive beyond the scars of war. Lyra nodded, her hand slipping into his, their fingers intertwining in a gesture that had become as natural as breathing since their stolen moments on the shuttle. The intimacy they shared fueled him now, a quiet fire that burned away doubt, making the vastness of this alien world feel conquerable. Together, they moved through the gardens, the vines parting like obedient sentinels at Lyra's subtle commands, revealing hidden paths woven into the landscape. Zerathia was a marvel, crystalline structures pulsing with inner light, air alive with holographic motes that danced like fireflies, and flora that hummed soft melodies in response to their presence. But beneath the beauty lurked the shadows the informant had hinted at, void architects, those enigmatic overlords of the weavers, embedding agents within the council itself. Ela's mind raced, piecing together fragments: the weavers' defeats, the council's reluctant alliance, Aloan's piercing gaze during the debates. "Who do we trust?" he murmured as they approached a secluded pavilion, its dome shimmering with protective veils. Lyra paused, her white hair catching the starlight in ethereal waves, her curvaceous form silhouetted against the glow. "Start with the informant. He gave us a name, Thaler, the elder who questioned our bond most fiercely. If the architects have a pawn, it would be one who clings to tradition, resistant to change like human involvement." Her voice carried a note of sorrow, as if betraying her own kind weighed heavily on her. Eli felt a pang of empathy. This was her home, her people, and yet she'd chosen him, chosen them, over rigid veils of isolation. They entered the pavilion, a sanctum of quiet reflection, where holographic archives floated like whispers from the past. Lyra activated a console with a graceful wave, pulling up records on Thaler, his lineage, his decrees, his recent communiques. Eli set Arya down in a cushioned nook, the space adapting to cradle her gently, its energies lulling her deeper into sleep. As data scrolled across the display, patterns emerged, anomalous signals from Thaler's quarters, veiled transmissions to coordinates in the void. This could be it, Eli said, leaning in, his shoulder brushing hers, the contact sparking a familiar warmth even in the tension. But as Lyra delved deeper, hacking through layers of encryption with her innate cunning, her fox-like heritage, granting her an edge in deception's dance, an anomaly flickered on the screen. A hidden file, buried like a seed in fertile soil, unlocked at her touch. What emerged wasn't just evidence against Thaler, it was a revelation that struck like a plasma bolt to the chest. The file unfolded into a chronicle, ancient and forbidden, detailing the origins of the Zerathian essence, the sacred blooms from which the milk was derived. But intertwined with it was a truth long suppressed. The essence wasn't just nourishing, it was a conduit, a bridge to the void architects themselves. Ila's breath caught as he read further, Lyra's face paling beside him, her emerald eyes widening in horror. The architects weren't external invaders, they were the progenitors, ancient beings who had seeded Zerathia eons ago, embedding their psyche into the blooms as a dormant failsafe. The milk, infused into Area, wasn't merely a gift, it was an activation key. By giving it to a human child, untainted by Zerathian veils, Lyra had unwittingly awakened a latent protocol. Area's hybrid nature would summon the architects' full manifestation, not as enemies, but as reclaimers of their lost children. No, Lyra whispered, her voice breaking, a dramatic fracture in her composed facade. She stepped back, hand over her mouth, ears flattening against her head in distress. Eli turned to her, confusion morphing into a storm of emotions. Betrayal. Deception? But her shock mirrored his, raw and unfeigned. I didn't know, she insisted, tears glistening like stars in her eyes. The council, they must have hidden this. The essence was meant to heal, to bond species, not this. The twist deepened as the file revealed more. Thaler wasn't the infiltrator, he was a guardian, one of the few who knew the truth and had been working covertly to prevent such an awakening. The informant? A plant by the architect's dormant influence, luring them here to expose the secret and accelerate the process. Eli's world tilted, everything he'd fought for, the Alliance, their love, Area's safety, now hung on a precipice of cosmic irony. Humans, with their unyielding spirit, weren't the saviors, they were the catalyst for Zerathia's potential downfall. Alarms blared suddenly, the pavilion's veils shimmering as external forces breached them. Holographic alerts flashed, architects' vessels emerging from the void, drawn by Area's burgeoning essence, her tiny form now glowing faintly in the cradle, innocent eyes fluttering open with an otherworldly light. Eli scooped her up, heart pounding, as Lyra activated defenses, her hands flying over the console. "We have to stop it," she cried, her voice laced with desperate drama. "If the architects reclaim us, Zerathia falls and humanity with it, as their new vessels." Thrilling chaos erupted. Guards, loyal or compromised, stormed the pavilion, plasma lances humming. Eli fired instinctively, his rifle barking rounds that shattered illusions sprouting from the intruder's tech. One guard lunged, tendrils of void energy whipping from hidden implants, revealing their architect corruption. Lyra dodged with acrobatic grace, her disruptor wand slicing through the air, but the surprise of the twist fueled Eli's fury. "You used me," he growled at the universe itself, but his gaze on Lyra softened. She was as blindsided as he, her love genuine amid the deception. They fought back to back, a whirlwind of human grit and alien elegance. Ili's shots were precise, piercing cores that dissolved the corrupted into ethereal mist, while Lyra wove counter veils, turning the pavilion into a labyrinth of mirages. Area's glow intensified, her cries not of fear but of power, disrupting the attacker's holds. The twist's surprise rippled through Eli like a shockwave. His daughter, the key to destruction, now their unwitting weapon. As they broke free, dashing into the gardens under a sky fracturing with incoming vessels, colossal shadows blotting the stars, Eli realized the profound irony. The HFY spirit he'd embodied wasn't about conquest, it was about adaptation, turning catastrophe into triumph. "We rewrite this," he declared, pulling Lyra into a fierce embrace amid the fray, Area between them like a beacon. "Our bond isn't their tool, it's ours." But the architect's voice boomed across the planet, a psychic thunder. "The awakening is complete. Reclaim what is ours." Vessels descended, unleashing waves of illusions that warped reality, spires twisting into tentacles, gardens blooming into voids. Eli and Lyra raced toward the sacred blooms grove, the source of the essence, where they could perhaps sever the connection. En route, more surprises unfolded. Eloan appeared, not as foe, but ally, her robes torn from prior skirmishes. Thaler sent me, she revealed, joining their flight. The council splintered long ago. Some embraced the progenitors, others resisted. Her aid turned the tide momentarily, her veils shielding them from psychic assaults. The grove loomed, a sanctuary of radiant flowers pulsing with ancient energy. As they entered, Aria's glow synced with the blooms, a symphony of light that threatened to summon the architects fully. Lyra knelt, tears streaming, preparing a ritual to reverse the infusion. This might cost me, she admitted, voice trembling with drama. Eli knelt beside her, hand on her shoulder. Then we pay it together. The ritual began, energies clashing like cosmic storms. Architects' avatars materialized, ethereal giants of shadow and light reaching for Aria. Eli stood guard, rifle blazing, his human defiance a roar against the inevitable. But in the climax of the twist, Aria's essence rebelled, not awakening destruction, but evolution. Infused with human resilience, she rejected the progenitors, her cry shattering their forms, sending ripples that destabilized the vessels above. The surprise piqued. Aria wasn't a destroyer, she was a liberator, her hybrid nature rewriting the architect's code, banishing them back to the void. Zerathia trembled, then stabilized, the skies clearing as the threat dissolved. In the aftermath, Eli held his family close, the powerful twist transforming despair into hope. Lyra looked at him, eyes filled with wonder. You humans, you turn fates on their heads. Their journey evolved, bonds unbreakable, as Zerathia hailed them not as outsiders, but as saviors. Yet whispers lingered of other progenitors, other worlds. The stars held more surprises, but with their love as anchor, Eli knew they'd face them unflinching. In the tranquil glow of Zerathia's restored skies, where the veils shimmered once more like protective auroras, weaving through the atmosphere, Eli stood on a crystalline balcony overlooking the grove, Aria giggling in his arms as she batted at holographic motes dancing in the air. The planet's elders had indeed hailed them as saviors, their praises echoing through the grand halls in melodic chants that blended gratitude with a touch of wary reverence. Lyra leaned against the balcony's edge beside him, her white hair stirred by a gentle breeze, her curvaceous form relaxed yet alert, those pointed ears twitching at the subtle harmonies of the world below. Their bond felt unbreakable, a fusion of human tenacity and Zerathian grace that had turned the tide against ancient foes. Yet, as the celebrations faded into a peaceful dusk, those lingering whispers of other progenitors of shadowy entities, stirring on distant worlds, gnawed at the edges of their victory, heightening a drama that refused to fully subside. Eli shifted Aria to his hip, her faint glow now a soft, controlled luminescence that spoke of her hybrid potential rather than peril. We did it, he said, his voice carrying a mix of triumph and quiet reflection, turning to Lyra with a grin that crinkled the scars on his face. Architects banished, Zerathia safe, and us, well, we're the galaxy's new power couple. What's next? A parade. Lyra's emerald eyes sparkled with affection, but a shadow crossed her features, her hand resting on his arm in a gesture that blended intimacy with caution. Parades might wait, she replied, her melodic purr laced with underlying tension. The council summons us again. Eloan mentioned complications. Other worlds sensing the ripple from Aria's awakening. Progenitors not fully vanquished perhaps, but fragmented, seeking new hosts. The words hung heavy, escalating the drama like a storm cloud gathering on the horizon. Ella's grin faded, replaced by the steely resolve of a veteran sensing incoming fire. Complications? That's code for more trouble. All right, let's hear it. They descended the spiraling vine stairs together, Aria's coos providing a light counterpoint to the building unease, her tiny fingers grasping at Lyra's flowing attire as if claiming her as family. The council chamber awaited, its dome now alive with urgent hologram star maps pulsing with anomalous signals from the galaxy's fringes. Eloan stood at the center, flanked by Thaler and other elders, their fox-like features drawn in expressions of grave concern. As Eli and Lyra entered, all eyes turned to them, the air thick with expectation. But the drama heightened immediately when Thaler stepped forward, his braided hair swaying dramatically, and fixed his gaze on Aria. The child, he intoned, his voice booming like thunder in a cavern. Her essence has broadcast a beacon. Worlds beyond our veils respond, some with alliance offers, others with demands. Eli felt a knot tighten in his stomach, the awkwardness of being thrust back into the spotlight after their hard-won peace making him shift uncomfortably. Demands? She's not a bargaining chip, he retorted, holding Arya closer, her innocent babble cutting through the tension like an unintended punchline. One elder stifled a chuckle, the sound echoing oddly in the solemn space, adding a spark of humor to the moment. Well, unless they're demanding diaper changes, I've got plenty of experience there. Lyra elbowed him gently, her cheeks flushing a delicate pink, but her lips twitched in amusement. Eli, timing, she whispered, though her eyes betrayed gratitude for the levity. The elders exchanged glances, Thaler's stern facade cracking slightly as he cleared his throat. Human wit intriguing. But the demands are serious. The Nithurian collective distant kin with their own progenitor scars insist on an audience. They claim Arya's hybrid nature could unlock their sealed archives, but they require proof of our bond's stability. Proof. The word landed like a misplaced grenade, heightening the drama as holograms flickered to life, displaying incoming vessels from Nithuria, sleek, angular ships slicing through hyperspace with ominous precision. Aloan elaborated, her tone laced with reluctance. They propose a ritual union, observed by their emissaries, to verify the human Zerathian link. Failure to comply could deem us unstable, inviting intervention. Ella's face heated, the awkwardness exploding into full view. A ritual what, in front of strangers? He glanced at Lyra, whose ears had flattened in embarrassment, her pale skin now a deeper shade of rose. You mean like a space wedding, with an audience? He stammered, trying to mask his discomfort with humor. I've faced hive swarms and void monsters, but performing for a crowd. That's a new level of battlefield nerves. The chamber erupted in a mix of murmurs, some shocked, others tinged with suppressed laughter. One younger elder snorted outright, covering it with a cough. The human speaks truth, Thaler admitted, a rare smile tugging at his lips. Nithurians are peculiar in their customs. But refusal risks war. The progenitor's fragments could exploit division. Drama swirled like a vortex as preparations began in earnest. Eli and Lyra were whisked to private quarters, a luxurious suite overlooking cascading waterfalls of light, but the impending ritual hung over them like a comedic curse. This is insane, Eli muttered as they settled, Arya playing with glowing orbs on the floor. He paced, rifle slung over his shoulder out of habit, while Lyra arranged her attire a more elaborate version of her iridescent ensemble, hugging her curves with elegant allure. I mean, I love you hell, I'd marry you in a heartbeat, but with alien voyeurs. Feels like a bad holodrama. Lyra approached, her hands on his shoulders, pulling him into a calming embrace. It's symbolic mostly, she assured, though her voice wavered with her own awkwardness. A dance of veils, shared essences. But yes, observed. Think of it as cultural exchange. She tilted her head, ears perking playfully. Besides, you've seen me at my most vulnerable. What's a little audience? Eli chuckled despite himself, the humor bubbling up as he kissed her forehead. Easy for you to say you're the graceful fox. I'm the clunky human who trips over his boots. But the levity couldn't fully dispel the drama. Incoming transmissions from Nithuria demanded specifics, their emissaries arriving with pomp that bordered on intimidation. The ritual chamber was a spectacle, a vast arena under open skies, veils parting to reveal stars as witnesses. Nithurian delegates arrived in shimmering cloaks, their forms taller and more angular than Zerathians, with subtle scale patterns glinting under the lights. Their leader, a imposing figure named Vexa, eyed Eli with appraising curiosity. The human savior, she purred, her voice a dramatic echo. We shall see if your bond withstands scrutiny. Awkwardness peaked as the ritual commenced. Eli and Lyra stood at the center, holographic rings encircling them, while observers, Zerathian elders and Nithurian guests, formed a respectful perimeter. Arya was held by Eloan nearby, her glow syncing with the energies, adding an innocent layer to the proceedings. The dance began. Lyra moved with fluid grace, her body weaving patterns that drew Eli in, their hands linking in symbolic gestures. But when it came to the shared essence, a intimate exchange of bioluminescent touches, Eli fumbled, his fingers brushing too clumsily, causing a veil to flicker erratically. The audience gasped, then tittered, Nithurians exchanging amused glances. Is this human custom? Vexa asked, her tone dripping with dramatic skepticism. Eli flushed, whispering to Lyra, told you clunky. She laughed softly, pulling him closer, turning the mishap into a tender moment that resonated with authenticity. "It's our custom," she declared loudly, her voice steady amid the humor. "Imperfect, but unbreakable." The drama intensified when a progenitor fragment sensing the gathering manifested as a shadowy illusion, tendrils lashing from the void to disrupt the ritual. Chaos erupted, observers scrambling, veils fracturing. Eli grabbed his rifle, firing precise shots while shielding Lyra, who countered with disruptor waves. "Not now," he yelled at the apparition, adding absurd humor to the fray. "We're in the middle of getting space married." Netherians joined the defense, their tech blending with Zerathian veils in a spectacular display. Vexa, impressed by Ella's quick thinking, blasted a tendril herself. "Your clumsiness belies valor," she admitted mid-battle, a grudging compliment that lightened the tension. Aria's glow flared, repelling the fragment, her cry a triumphant note that banished it back to oblivion. As order restored, the ritual concluded successfully, the bond affirmed amid applause. But awkwardness lingered in the aftermath feast, where Netherians quizzed Eli on human mating habits with blunt curiosity. "Do all humans fumble so?" one asked, eliciting laughter. Eli grinned, raising a toast. "Only the best ones keeps things exciting." Lyra leaned against him, her hand in his, the drama of the day forging their alliance deeper. Yet, as stars wheeled overhead, transmissions hinted at more progenitors awakening on other worlds, Velquar, Xandor demanding similar proofs. The humor faded into resolve, their journey was far from over, awkward trials and dramatic clashes awaiting in the cosmos. Eli kissed Lyra under the veils, Aria cooing between them. "Ready for round 2?" he quipped. "With you, always," she replied, her eyes alight with love and adventure. The night deepened, bonds tested and strengthened, as whispers of greater threats stirred in the void, heightening the saga's unrelenting pull. As the veils of Zerathia cascaded around them like a living tapestry, weaving patterns of light and shadow that mirrored the complexities of their intertwined lives, Eli drew Lyra closer, her warmth a steady anchor against the vast uncertainties of the cosmos. The night's gentle hum enveloped them, the distant songs of blooming flora, the subtle pulse of the planet's energies, syncing with Aria's soft breaths as she nestled between them, her tiny glow a beacon of hope rather than harbinger. Whispers of those awakening progenitors on worlds like Velquar and Xandor lingered in the air, but in this moment, they felt distant, mere echoes in the grand symphony of their saga. Eli tilted his head, pressing a kiss to Lyra's temple, feeling the delicate twitch of her pointed ear against his lips. "Round 2, huh?" he murmured, his voice a low rumble laced with the affection that had grown from desperation into something profound and enduring. Lyra's emerald eyes met his, sparkling with a mix of mischief and depth, her white hair spilling over his arm like a cascade of starlight. "More than that," she replied softly, her melodic purr resonating through him. "This is our story's crescendo, not an end, but a new verse. The Council has granted us emissary status, Eli. We'll journey to those worlds, forge alliances, turn threats into triumphs. With Aria as our bridge, humanity and Zerathia united, the progenitors don't stand a chance." The words ignited a spark in him, chasing away the fatigue of recent trials. They rose together, hand in hand, wandering deeper into the gardens where vines bloomed in response to their presence, unfurling petals that released scents of renewal, sweet and invigorating, like the promise of dawn after a long night. Aria cooed delightedly, her small hands reaching for the glowing blooms, her hybrid essence causing them to shimmer brighter, as if the planet itself recognized her as kin. Eli marveled at it all, how a lone veteran, stranded on a war-torn rock with nothing but a crying infant and a rifle, had stumbled into this extraordinary life. The milk that started it, a simple need, had evolved into a bond that reshaped galaxies. As they strolled, the drama of their journey replayed in Eli's mind like fragments of a holo vid, the enigmatic knock at his door, Lyra's irresistible offer, the passionate nights amid battles, the shocking twists of ancient secrets, and the awkward rituals that tested their love. Each challenge had heightened their connection, turning awkward mishaps into shared laughter, dramatic clashes into unbreakable resolve. Now, with Zerathia's elders pledging support ships, tech, and veils to cloak their travels, the path ahead felt less like a gauntlet and more like destiny. They reached a serene overlook, a platform of crystalline stone jutting over a valley where waterfalls of light tumbled into pools that reflected the stars. Lyra leaned against the railing, her curvaceous form outlined in the soft glow, and Eli wrapped his arms around her from behind, Aria balanced on his hip. Remember when I thought you were just a foxwoman with milk? He teased gently, injecting a touch of that familiar humor to lighten the profound moment. Now look at us galactic diplomats, parents to a little star child, and me still fumbling through alien customs. She laughed, a sound like chiming crystals, turning in his embrace to face him, and I thought humans were blunt instruments of war. But you've shown me passion, resilience, the kind of love that outsmarts the stars themselves. Her fingers traced the scars on his cheek, her touch tender, evoking memories of their intimate unions, the way their bodies had merged in ecstasy, blending species in a dance of desire and trust. Those moments had been the true forge of their alliance, turning physical connection into emotional fortress. Arya stirred, her eyes a blend of Ella's hazel and Lyra's emerald fluttering open with curiosity. She reached for both of them, tiny fingers grasping, and in that instant, the family felt complete. The progenitor's threats, fragmented and scattered, would come. Ellie knew it in his bones, but they would face them not as isolated warriors, but as a united front. Humanity's fuck yes spirit, amplified by Zerathian cunning and Arya's unique power, promised victories untold. Word of their exploits had already spread. Transmissions from human colonies arrived daily, hailing Eli as a hero who bridged worlds, while Zerathian envoys prepared joint fleets. Eloan had even softened, offering quiet blessings during a private ceremony where she infused their bond with ancient veils, ensuring their essences remained linked across distances. You have rewritten our fates, she'd said, her stern features warming with rare approval. As the first hints of Zerathia's dual suns crested the horizon, painting the sky in hues of gold and violet, Eli and Lyra shared a lingering kiss, deep, passionate, a reaffirmation of everything they'd built. Arya gurgled happily between them, her glow sinking with the dawn, symbolizing new beginnings. They boarded their assigned vessel later that day, a sleek Zerathian cruiser outfitted with human armaments, Isla's rifle upgraded with Veil tech, Lyra's disruptors enhanced by Terran precision. The ship lifted off smoothly, veils cloaking its departure as it pierced the atmosphere, heading toward Velquar first, where progenitors stirred in shadowed ruins. En route, they planned strategies blending Ili's tactical grit with Lyra's deceptive artistry, all while nurturing Arya's burgeoning abilities. She was no longer just a baby needing milk. She was a prodigy, her cries capable of unraveling illusions, her laughter summoning protective energies. Challenges arose swiftly, a progenitor ambush in the void, illusions warping space into labyrinths of despair. But Eli and Lyra moved as one. He charged with plasma fire, shattering cores, while she wove counter veils, turning deceptions back on their makers. Arya's presence amplified it all, her essence disrupting the fragments until they dissipated like mist. Victory came with exhilarating speed, the crew a mix of humans and Zerathians cheering as the threat vanished. From Velquar to Xandor their legend grew. On Xandor, amid crystalline storms and ancient temples, they uncovered progenitor artifacts, devices meant to enslave minds, but Arya's touch neutralized them, transforming tools of domination into beacons of freedom. Alliances formed. Velquar's nomadic fleets pledged loyalty, Xandor's scholars shared lost knowledge, each world adding to the growing coalition against the Void's remnants. Through it all, their love deepened. Stolen moments in the ship's quarters, bodies entwining under starlit viewports, reaffirmed their passion. Gentle explorations giving way to fervent unions, where Ayla's strength met Lyra's grace in waves of shared bliss. Humor peppered their days, Ayla's clumsy attempts at Zerathian dances eliciting laughter, Lyra's fox-like curiosity about human idioms leading to playful banter. Years blurred into a tapestry of triumphs. Arya grew into a vibrant child, her hybrid gifts guiding them through final confrontations, a climactic battle at the Void's edge, where the last progenitor essence coalesced into a colossal entity. United forces clashed, ships dancing through veils, LA leading ground assaults with unyielding fury, Lyra orchestrating deceptions that exposed weaknesses. Arya, now a young girl, channeled her power in a radiant burst, severing the entity's ties to reality, banishing it forever. Peace settled across the stars. Zerathia and human worlds flourished in harmony, trade routes buzzing with shared wonders, cultures blending in festivals where fox-eared dancers twirled with rugged marines. Eli and Lyra retired to a quiet haven on a terraformed moon, their home a blend of habitats, crystalline spires amid earthly gardens, where Arya played with siblings born of their enduring love. In twilight years, Eli sat with Lyra on a porch overlooking nebulae, her hand in his, weathered but strong. From milk to miracles, he reflected, voice soft with wonder. She smiled, ears twitching fondly. And every step worth it. Aria, now a leader in her own right, visited often, her glow a legacy of hope. The galaxy, once torn by ancient tricks, thrived under the banner of unity, humanity's spirit, proving that even in the vast unknown, love and resolve could conquer all. As stars wheeled eternal, their story became legend: the lone veteran, the fox woman, and the child who bridged worlds. A good ending, not of closure, but of infinite possibility.